Now, first of all, I would like to congratulate you for joining the Toastmasters. You have made a humongous step in trying to improve your communication skills. You see, a person who is able to express himself well, a person who is able to communicate well, is admired, is respected by the people around you, most especially the boss. And people keep on wondering as to what you did in order to achieve such skill, to be able to express yourself well. Now imagine this. Your voice quivers. Your knees shake. Your mouth is very dry and you cannot say anything. And then your heart is pounding so hard that it feels like it's coming out of your throat. Sounds familiar?
Yes.
Have you experienced it? No, it's not love. It's not love. It's just the anxiety of public speaking. Now, I told you, some of you must have heard the story, why I joined the Toastmasters in the first place. To conquer my own nervousness. You see, when I was a new teacher, 22 years old, in high school, and then my students, it was a girls' school, and that was the first time that a male teacher was hired. And the students, because I was teaching senior, they were 17, 18, and I was 22. And the age gap was very short. And then the big boss of the Mariner Sisters, who was based in New York, was coming to our school. And then the principal said, okay, she might drop by in your class. And then when it was announced, I felt so nervous. And I was praying and hoping that she would not drop by my class. And then while I was writing on the board, and then when I turned, the boss of the boss was there, walking slowly so that they would not be disturbed. And then my mouth became so dry, I wanted to say something, I could not. And then the girls, my nervousness was transferred to the girls. And then they could not look at me. Everybody was looking down. And then the sister stood up and left. And I was trying to say something, I could not. The 5 minutes that it took me to be able to say something felt like it was 5 hours. And I apologized to the girls, and then they would not even make eye contact with me. Everybody was looking up. And then, when the class was finished, I looked for the sister. And then I found her and I said, I'm sorry, sister, would you please follow me and observe me in another class? Mr. Prades, you don't have to prove anything. Your principal says you are doing an excellent job. I am sorry, I rattled, I scared you. And that is how I felt. Now, do you feel nervous every time you speak in front of an audience?
Yes.
It is scary. Now, some people, everybody, a proficient speaker, experienced speaker, or a newbie, a new speaker, both of them get nervous. But the only difference is that the speaker is able to control his nervousness and it doesn't show. And it lasts for only a few seconds. But the newbie, the beginner like me when I was a teacher, I was not able to control me. My nervousness controlled me, and it was a disaster. So, how are you going to be able to control nervousness? Number one is preparation. If you are not going to prepare, then nervousness is always going to be there. Now, even the most powerful man in the world, the President of the United States, now I don't know about Trump, probably he does not, but the good ones, Obama, Clinton, they were very good speakers. When they were going to have a press conference, they would sequester themselves with the advisors. And then the president would be grilled by his advisors, so that when he faces the press, he is ready. Now, Trump says he is a very stable genius, so he does not need it. He does not even read the report of his security advisors. He said, I know that. See, now, you see, George Castle, a movie star, once said, the human brain starts working the moment we are born. And then it stops working when you stand up in front of a unit, start talking, and then the lights are switched off, and it's all blank. And I totally agree with that. Yeah, now, you see, being able to express oneself very well is a necessary skill. In fact, it could determine whether you are going to succeed or not. Now, have you noticed that you got the job because of an interview? And an interview is nothing but a series of table topics. It's all table topics. And then, to a certain degree, it is what some call it unfair, in the sense that in 30 minutes or 10 minutes even, or 5 minutes, you are, the person determines whether you are going to be hired or not. Now, part of my job when I was with Procter & Gamble was to interview people. And then, the first couple of minutes, shake hands, sit down, and then interaction. In 2 minutes, I would be able to tell whether I will hire him or not. Now, sometimes I could be wrong, but most of the time, I am correct. Now, you see, the nice thing about expressing yourself well is that it can be learned. Just like playing cricket, you can learn it. Playing basketball, playing the piano. These are skills that can be learned. So with speaking or expressing yourself, that is necessary. And you are in the right place. And now, let me tell you a little story about how the Toastmasters League was born. You see, I was interviewed in Canada for a job here in Kuwait. After the interview, the interviewers said, well, do you have any question? And so I said, yes, I have a question, but it has nothing to do with the job. And then they looked at each other, flabbergasted. And then probably they were saying, what riddle is he trying to give us? And so, okay, what is it? I said, is there a Toastmasters in Kuwait? They look at each other, and they said, we don't know, but we will let you know the moment we have the information. So that was all the question I had. To make it short, I got hired. I was already here And they had not informed me whether there was a Toastmasters or not. I was only a few days old here, and I was getting restless. And so I even made a call to the American Embassy because Toastmasters is an American thing. And so I called them. As far as we know, there is no Toastmasters. And then the next day, it appeared in the papers, an advertisement, that they were going to form a Toastmasters. It was placed by an American lady who was a professor at Kuwait University. And then that's how it started. Meeting, publishing in the papers. And it took us more than a year, probably 2 years, to have it started. And now, how many do we have now? I think we have more than 1,000 members. 1,000 members. Can you believe that? Now, and of course, when I started Active Minds, it was not Active Minds, it was Filipino Toastmasters Club. And we used to meet at the Philippine Embassy. And then finally, or we go to a hotel, and then and it took me more than a year to be able to have one. Now, I went to the Filipino community and then in the embassy trying to propagate Toastmasters. And they were there, but you see, one thing, my lament with my own community is that when it comes to things like this, they are not they are not like the Indians. Now here in the Middle East, the Toastmasters is dominated by the Indians. Wherever you go, it's dominated by the Indians. And I admire that. Now, when we started the Gobble Club, again, I started with the Arabic Club, Abdullah did it, and then I started with the Filipino Club. Now, at first it wouldn't happen, but then they asked me to coach their contestant. You know, every year, the national hero of the Philippines is celebrated. Not only in the Philippines, but the schools in the Middle East, Filipino schools. And then they have an annual public speaking contest about the life of the hero. And then they said that they started asking the community, and they ended up by my doorstep. And so I agreed, and I told them, I am accepting on one condition. Now, I'm going to be the only coach, because if he fails, I am the only one to be blamed. I am the only one responsible. And, you know, if somebody has so many coaches, because we have different ideas, and then the person is going to be confused. So they agreed. And then he won first place for the first time from their school. And then so I said, time for them to invite them for the Gobble Club. Gobble Club, the parents were so enthusiastic. So we had, and they were very happy about it. The parents were forced to there because they had to drive the kids. And then I left on vacation. When I came back, they were gone. And then there were only 2, and then the Indian kids started coming. And then so I transferred to the American University of Kuwait, so we used to meet them. And then Anil joined me. And then the 2 of us, for the longest time, were doing it. But I said, I told Anil that, the deepening shadows of life are now catching up with me, so I would like to not get involved so much anymore. So Anil He is still at it. He's young, so that's it. Now, we used to meet here, and this place is so different from what it is now. Now, this was the only one that was not part of the library. And then, the reason why they came here was the price was practically a giveaway. It was probably just $10 a month for the first time. That's why there were so many clubs here. And then the double clubs used to meet here as well. And then so many changes. So, and then they have spread. And then at the venue now in Romatia, it used to be the Bibolia of Abdallah, but he opened it. And it used to be free as well. But I could understand because the maintenance, everything. So he started charging the clubs as well. And so that's how we have started. Now, in North America, practically before, 90% of the Toastmasters in the world were in Canada and the United States. Now, in Canada, it's like practically every corner there's a Toastmaster. And then also in the United States. Now, you might ask, how many of you have attended Toastmasters other than here in Kuwait? Yeah. Now, I always attend. When I'm in Canada, I do club hopping during meetings. When I go to the States, the same thing. And they are very happy. Now, in the States, they were very happy that, a Toastmaster from another country was visiting them. There was one time in Chicago. It was just a small club in the basement of a church. And then I have a brother in Chicago, and I asked my brother to drive me to the place. And he said, I am going to drive you there on one condition. I said, okay, I will not speak. I said, I can handle that. Okay, you will not speak. But they might ask you to introduce yourself, and he said, I can handle that. All right? And so, yeah. And surprise, one evaluator did not come, and then could you be our evaluator? I said, fine. And then so I spoke in the table topics. I was the evaluator, and I won the table topics, and I won the evaluator. And the general evaluator said, I could still remember it. He said, Mr. Prades' evaluation was the best ever I have heard in this club.
Wow.
And then so, yeah, and I always attend. And so, when you have a chance, when you go to India, attend meetings. If you go to other countries now, when I go to the Philippines, I attend clubs. And so, now, and I am so glad that the Toastmasters here is growing. And it will still grow. You see, when I competed before, there was only one district. And now there are 5 districts. So 6 countries were competing in as one. And now we have 5 districts. That's how I started my Toastmasters in Aramco in Saudi Arabia. And there were only 2 clubs in the 80s. And there were only 3. 2 corporate clubs of the company, and then one for the expats outside. And now they are 2 districts. That's how phenomenal the growth of the Toastmasters in Saudi Arabia is. And I hope this one will also become a district. Okay, so, and Desert Pioneers, I remember, I was not a charter member, but I was part of the demonstration team and invited. I don't think the founding members are not here. Everybody's gone. Yeah, and yeah, most of the English clubs here, I was part of the, not as a member, but demonstration meeting and encouraging. And so that's what's going to happen. So is there any question? Because we are running out of time now. And so thank you very much for this opportunity.